Now, we do this by enlightenment, reorientation, prepare and support young, prepare. The MC already mentioned that you know, Nigerians need to be future-looking and pragmatic as they go to the poll. The 23 plus years of uninterrupted democracy has not quite yielded some of the benefits that we had expected to receive. Now, further verifiable data shows that young people, particularly people within the age bracket of 18 and 35, make up the majority of Nigerians, make up the majority of the voting population in Nigeria. And that's about 84% of the register, according to the INEC, according to INEC data. And while there has been a lot of social media engagement by young people, especially on social media in support of their preferred candidates, these engagements will come to naught if not appropriately and objectively channeled, without ethno-religious or financial motivation, induced sentiments and meanings. We are all aware of the current states of the nation and what is happening, especially in the political space. So it is therefore expedient to engage strategically to provide Nigerians with sufficient information to guide them in making their choice of leaders, as well as support to channel the enthusiasm of young Nigerians into purposeful voting action to ensure the next 8 years and beyond set Nigeria further away from the errors of bad governance and primordial sentiments in the last 23 years, and closer to being a globally competitive nation forged by the unified focus of its government and citizens in the coming year. Now, in the light of the foregoing and in fulfillment of the commitment to build a national identity for the next generation, one man, one idea, and one change at a time, a Nigeria built for Nigerians by a community of Nigerians who believe in Nigeria. This colloquy is a technical dialogue on national development, unity, global competitiveness, and an ordered society, as to decide on what kind of leadership Nigeria needs now to lead the nation for the next 4 to 8 years. Now, the goal of this conversation is to ensure Nigeria is set on a course of global competitiveness based on a citizens' collective as we go to the polls to get for ourselves a nation and a nation builder and not a new politician. Now, this conversation will draw on foreign and international experiences and perspectives in analyzing our local democratic journey so far along the 4 pillars of civilization as we craft a framework for the future of our democracy with the reality of an empowered citizenry and preferably regulators in Nigeria. The event will be a glimpse sort of a reimagination of the future of Nigeria by addressing and maximizing the potentials and possibilities across the varied sectors of the economy for a mutually beneficial future, one that would foster sustainable growth and development, and for the country and its citizens, and not a select elite stakeholder group, which appears to be the current situation in our dear country. At the end of this colloquy, we hope to have, achieved some of the following: advocate and create a national development blueprint based on the 4 core pillars of civilization and globally competitive analysis goals for the incoming administration, as well as create a structural compass for the citizens as they make a final push for the governance change by a citizens collective. We also hope to engage and mobilize citizens to awaken their consciousness beyond religion or ethnicity, to move towards a national citizens consensus focused on national development, unity, global competitiveness, and an ordered society. Because with the present state of our nation, it is very obvious that there is a clear leadership failure and the lack of a unified voice by the citizens to push for development, as they are largely constricted by politically motivated, ethno-religious, and self-focused corruption driven by primordial sentiments. We also hope to address the need for the elites to step up beyond their comfort zones and private empires, to speak up for the future of the generality of the country and the next generation of its citizenship by waking up to their moral responsibilities as gatekeepers to the country. We are most grateful for your generosity in honoring our invitation and look forward to a very invigorating and transforming conversation. Thank you. Yeah, before I take my leave, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome the moderator. Initially we mentioned an MC, but this individual that I'm about to introduce will be the moderator for this colloquy today. And her name is Rita Egujobo. She's popularly known, thank you, she deserves that. Now, she's popularly known as Queen Rita. Queen Rita is a very highly regarded on-air personality. Yes, with the hot 98.3 FM. Sometimes we like to be modest, especially women. I don't know why. We like to be very, very modest. And then Rita is a very passionate person. She's very passionate about human issues and building a great Nigeria for all of us. So please help me welcome Queen Rita to the stage. Thank you, Rita.
Thank you very much. It is sometimes really important to be reminded of who you are, and it feels better when it comes from a sister. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here today. I think we have pretty much told us while we are here. And like she said, my name is Rita Egujobo. I will be the moderator for today's event. And let's put this forward. This is a hybrid event. So I know majority of the people that we have taken part across the globe are online, not just in Nigeria, from all over. So I think I would just greet good day, because I'm not sure what time zone you're joining us from. But thank you for being a part of this very, very important and hopefully nation-changing conversation that we're having here in Abuja today. So I'm going to be threading what most of the speakers here will be saying today together. That's my job pretty much. And like I said, it is a hybrid event. And the theme of this maiden event is Nigeria in 2031. I love what my sister said when she was speaking earlier. The best way to predict the future is to plan it, is to make it happen. So you might be wondering, What do they mean 2031? Yes, when somebody comes into office after this election, they have, in most cases, 8 years. Well, maybe 4. But in most cases, 8 years. What would have happened? Are we setting agenda for this person? Or are we just going to wait? When they get in there, we complain, complain, and complain again until they get out. We shouldn't be doing that. And that is why it is very, very important that this colloquy is taking place now before the election that is going to happen. So I believe, some of the conversations we'll have today will help Nigerians even decide at the end of the day who they should be voting for, right? And not just deciding who to vote for, but follow the money by making sure they hold whoever eventually gets into office accountable. Because sometimes our leaders thrive in bliss because we don't ask questions, we don't follow up. So they tell you in your village last year, there was a budget for it, it's in the budget. Next year, it's in the budget. The other year, it's in the budget. Nobody's asking questions. When you start asking questions, these things, there will be a shift in the paradigm. And that's why we're having this conversation today. Let me especially welcome you one more time. I have a very rich alley of speakers that will be speaking to us today during the panel. And let me just put this forward. Professor Chidi Kalu, we all know he's a very busy person. He's supposed to start out this conversation with a keynote speech, but he'll be doing that after the other speakers because, well, the governor called. Not the central bank governor. I thought I should put that there because not the central bank governor, but the governor called and he had to answer. So he will be joining us after we have some of the main speakers here who are equally very qualified. If they are not, they will not be on this list. Trust me, the organizers did a good job picking the speakers for specific reasons to be a part of the conversation today. And are we not just happy that we are part of the maiden edition of the colloquy? Can we please put our hands together for ourselves? Because whether we like it or yes, today we are making history. We're making history, right? So let's get straight to other things that we'll be looking at today. Like I said, it is a hybrid event, so we have people joining us online. Let me quickly go through some of our speakers who are here already. How this is going to run is the speakers that are here and online, we speak to us for 10 minutes each, after which we have a question and answer session. The question and answer moderated by me, but we like to be liberal. So if there is a question in the house or online, we will also put it into the conversation because that's why we're all here. It's not to talk at anybody, but for us to have a conversation where everyone is carried along. Are we in agreement? Those who suppose say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. There's no need to waste our time. The ayes have it. So we get straight into it and let's welcome our speakers, both physical and virtual this morning. Or is it afternoon already? Okay, I said this day. Not knowing where you are. I'm not talking about the publication though, but I guess you understand. Let me start by someone I just realized now is my big brother, by the way. Professor Dim Kala will not bother to read this, a brief profile that is here now. When he's joining us to speak, we will do that. But we do have Sir Babajide Zubeiru Atta with us. Can we please put our hands together for him as he comes forward? Mr. Atta is a generalist. He is presently the head of training at Northwind Global Consult Nigeria. He is a fellow European Union founded Global Exchange on Religion in Society. He is a strategic communication expert with vast experience in gender programming, mainstreaming, and women's studies. He has consulted on European Union's USAID, DFID, CIDA, United Nations, UN agencies, including the UN Women, UNEDO, UNESCO. I thought you were clapping. An international organization like the MacArthur Foundation, WaterAid, Creative Associates, etc. He has served as a technical advisor to the Federal Commissioner for Refugees, Migrants, and internally displaced persons. His work and research interests comprises systems result-based monitoring and evaluation, political trend analysis, campaign strategies, program design, stakeholders engagement, technical advisory, program planning, policy analysis and development, implementation plans, gender studies, and businesses. His profile is an encyclopedia. But let me just round off about him by telling you that on the political front, he has contested as a deputy gubernatorial candidate of the ANPP in Kogi State in 2012 and led the party for 2 years thereafter till the formation of the ABC. At the moment, he's a non-partisan politician committed to servicing the political system. It's important to put that up. Ladies and gentlemen, who is actually my senior colleague and big brother, by the way, because when I stood here earlier and said I'm a thespian, I found that he's actually a PhD holder in theater arts. Okay, so I understand Mr. Majid isn't joining us right now, right? Dio? Is Mr. Majid online already? Okay. So we're moving on. Abuchi is here. I need to know those who are currently present online so that we just give out their profile before we start the conversation. Let me look at the screen, see whether I can find their faces. Is Abuchi Peter online already? Okay, so can we please welcome him? If you're online, you should clap as well because we can hear you in our brains. Okay, Abuchi Peter Ogo is the CEO of Chocolate City Group. When you hear that name, you just think of Emma Yabaga and all the rap, Yeah. Abuchi Peter Ogo of the Chocolate City Group and serves on its board of directors. Born and bred in the city of Jos, Plateau State, Nigeria, Abuchi worked as a producer and sound engineer on a number of industry projects, which is inclusive of Chocolate City projects, Ole Cook, African Rapper, Nobody Test Me, and more. And then ventured into artist management in 2013. Abuchi then became head of business development for the company in 2015, leading strategic partnerships and ensuring flexibility in solutions to an event-changing marketplace. In 2019, he was appointed vice president for Being Creative Agency, a talent management and influencer marketing agency based in Lagos, Nigeria. He's online. Okay, no, it's fine. You can slip a note so I can just, be on the same page with you. Okay, so Mr. Abuchi is joining us online with a round of applause. Let's. And my sister in the house is here. Join me to welcome the head of school, Safe Hands School, Abuja, Oluwatosin Oladipo. Can we please put our hands together for her? Mrs. Oluwatosin Tolulope Oladipo is an economics graduate of the Lagos State University. She's a great Akokite, right? Lagos State University in Lagos, Nigeria. She also holds an executive MBA from the Lagos Business School, LBS. She started her career at Colloquy PLC as a credit and collection officer and later became a sales superintendent, not of police. Okay. After 8 years of service, she left the employment of Colloquy PLC to pursue her dream of impacting the Nigerian educational system positively, in furtherance of which she has a diploma in early childhood studies from Heritage House of Montessori Center, Lagos, and obtained a trainer certificate from the Montessori Center International, London. Over the years, she carried out educational system-focused researches and provided consulting advisory services to several schools. She is currently the head of school at Safe Hands Schools, Abuja, where she has oversight of the day-to-day operations of the school. She is very passionate about equipping educators, and she sets up 2 networking platforms, I Teach Abuja and Transformational Accountability Network, TAN, a networking platform for educators and school leaders. Oluwatosin has been teaching Sunday school for over 20 years and is married with children. Okay, do we have Mr. Ife Ijimbe online right now? or we'll wait until he joins us from wherever he is in the globe? Thank you very much. Mr. Kunle Lawal. Okay. Sorry? Okay, hopefully you join us online. Okay. And then we have Ogechi Abu. Okay, also join us online. Wonderful. Right, right. I think we should get into the conversation already. Isn't there anyone else in the hall that's supposed to join the panel here? Mr. Joe, we good to go with the panel we'll have here? Every other person is online, right? Do I have his profile? Is it Mr. Abu? Okay. Let's see, I moved from Chocolate City to the school. My sister also said Sunday school wasn't enough. Let's make it a daily teaching habit. And then we moved from there. Okay. He's not Mr. Kunle Lawal, is he?
No.
Okay. Dr. Sam, right? Please, sir, could you come forward? Can we welcome him? I will give justice to his profile much later. Thank you very much. I think we can have a seat and then start this conversation already. Thank you very much. Should we borrow the microphone over here? And I'll beg you to please help me pass it around as we go. Can you see us? Do we need to move the podium? I'm used to having live shows, so these things happen. When an event is happening live, we can adjust and reframe and make sure we are having the right frame so that everybody is carried along. But thank you so much for agreeing to be here out of your very busy schedule today, Dr. Sam. Thank you for being here. Hopefully, we're going to have a really interesting and engaging conversation today. Thank you. Are we set? Yes. Are we ready? The thing is that Mr. Gio and the organizers actually made our job a lot easy by, just outlining specifically what we're going to be talking about. Yes. So, like I said, when we started, each of the speakers, we have 10 minutes or less, to talk to the topic which they before, after which we'll go into the question and answer session, right? I like to be gender sensitive. Since we have more male in the panel, let's have a male start. I knew you were going to think I was going to let her start. No, that's not the plan. I don't know. We women are very, very, we are very, very,
You see our predicament.
we like to, so I'm going to, hand the mic over to Doc, let him, start the conversation, and then we'll take it from there. Please, if you could help. Thank you. Can we please put our hands together for me?
Thank you very much. I normally would not say thank you for being invited to such a very, very important situation where we find ourselves. But for this purpose, I'll say thank you. I usually thank you because it's a collective dilemma we are faced with, and it's a collective attempt to voice our thoughts, ideas based on the experiences that we've gone through. I have been given the responsibility of talking on. I'm going to be referring to my notes once in a while. I'm now hybrid. And I really appreciate the background, all the background preparations that were going on before we came on, and that shows that we're very human. And it's also a microcosm of the scenario we find ourselves in the country at the moment. A little bit of chaos here, but order begins to come in, and that I think it's a prophetic step in the right direction. And started with government and leadership, policy, politics, and governance. And let us start a little bit definition. Governance is the collective implementation of agreements and ideas by a group of people. Now, they form rules of engagement, which you can call, which have arbitration points, which you call the judiciary, and then as rules are being tested by human beings and conditions of the environment, you begin to look for how to adjust the rules. So in other words, we're looking at governance, we're looking at policy and politics as a dialectic thing because it keeps to generate. As long as we're humans, economists say that you can never you can never need everything, I think, but you always want something. The key issue is you have to you have to prioritize what you want and then give it time frame of what you want to implement. And then foundationally, I'm very happy you mentioned the issue of gender. It's this I see my responsibility here as a mind conditioning and a behavioral attempt to begin to question our existence.
Okay, sir.
Please give us a countdown so we know how to.
Shall we?
Yeah, so when we look at after the foundational definitions of what governance should be, the structure of governance, which I'm glad has been broken down into legislature, judiciary, and the executive, I would like to include the executive here being the civil service as a major framework for any executive activity. And I'm not mincing words, the civil service has been the albatross of any developmental thing in this country at the moment. Why do I say so? We were colonized, and the civil service was a colonial civil service with mentalities that border on I am to follow the order by Her Majesty's order, by Her Majesty's, whatever it is for Her Majesty's government. And we know that the ethos of the colonial civil service was just to be ancillary support mechanisms or a support system that will continue to aid the exploitation of the commonwealth of the peoples of this entity called Nigeria. And the judiciary was also based, and is still also based on that. You can even see the symbolism of the garb you wear. You still wear the ancient wig and the what? How how practical is that in the tropical climate? I don't know. And not many of our courthouses, in any case, have air conditioner. So you see lawyers sweating up and down, and that is symbolic of the kind of things we inherited. Now, the legislature, it's even better for us because as an set of African peoples, we like to palaver. Palaver is a form of engaging each other to discuss common goals, common cultural traditions and everything that will rule us or that will govern how we interact with ourselves, whether as a family or as individuals or as neighbors, and that is okay. However, the way and manner in which we have done our legislative arm structured it is very foreign, and that's why you begin to find that we have a lot of aberrations and misunderstandings and misconstruals of the mechanism of legislature. And that's why you find even the issue of language and conveyance is a little bit of a tortuous assignment. I'm talking from a point of experience because I worked in the National Assembly as well as a strategy advisor to the Senate Committee on Defense a few years back. Now, I've gone through, as an individual, I've gone through 5 presidential elections. From 1979, I did not vote. Then that was Shehu Shagari. Then he brought in Obasanjo. Then we had Yaradua. Then we had Goodluck Jonathan. And then we've had Buhari now. We are going. We're looking at now, I think we had NSAS and all that. Now we're having a movement of the youth actually asking questions, which has been catalyzed by the internet, social media. And it makes sense for our so-called political leadership to begin to look at these issues critically and begin to get the voice. Now, it is good that I mentioned gender again, not as a stereotype, but to begin to condition our minds in the planning framework for this discourse and going further, going towards 2027, I think. Endemic corruption is another issue that I've been asked to talk about. Now, corruption is a definitive phrase. We are still looking at corruption from the point of view of the colonial masters. In Africa, I'm not condoning corruption in the sense of it. I want us to just discuss it and look at it from our African perspectives. Now, there's nothing wrong with me going to see Mr. Jembi and say, hey, look, I come to visit you and I bring something. It's a traditional African thing. I bring in a gift to visit you and then you give me a gift. In colonial or modern past corruption, I remember Dr. Tam David West, the late Professor Tam David West, actually got imprisoned for receiving a wristwatch and drinking tea. But that is African. You understand that? So those are issues of corruption. Corruption in this instance now where I can look is if you go against the collective set of rules that are agreed by a set of people that go against fairness, equity, and justice, then you can say the person is corrupt. And then I mentioned the civil service as being one of the bastions of corruption because they are still directed to, and any politician that comes in does not even know. The budget is not written by is not designed by the politician or the political leader. The budget is designed by the civil service. The civil service write the memos for any implementation to go to the Federal Executive Council. The civil service do the drafting of bills and all that. Of course, now with the CSO coming in, I'll be rounding up in a few minutes, right? So we have to look at these issues, and then the definitions of crime, criminality, and political thuggery, arson, and assassinations. Now you will look at, these were foundational. During the times of Herbert Macaulay, in the agitation for quasi-independence, I'll put it in parentheses, from the colonial powers, and the agreement to begin to give us some form of political structure by allowing us to form political parties that will engage in the colonial government in Lagos at that parts of the northern Cameroon, where the NCNC and so many other movements at that time metamorphosed into the 1960 independence. Those are issues that are foundational in the ethos that became the country Nigeria. I'm deliberate not using the nation. I use the word the country. Nigeria is a country that has many nationalities. Now, Nigeria is a business transaction up till now. The transaction started in 1913 and is supposed to have ended on paper in 2014/2015, regardless of the independence was given to Nigeria in 1960. And I'll put it on record that the Nigerian Central Bank is not owned by Nigeria. It is only a business partnership. If you look at the foundation, and that's why the central bank governor mentioned a few weeks ago that they are private sector, they are private investors. So let us be very that we are still trying to grapple with. Initially, our 1979 constitution said we would change the constitution parliament system, we would change for parliament, and we changed it to the regular system. Normal African traditional ways of understanding and interacting with ourselves. So those are foundational issues that will breed about corruption, crime, and assassinations and assassins because we do not yet understand what it is like to be in governance. We do not yet understand the dynamics of judicial adjudication. We do not understand the dynamics of legislative activity, and it is supposed to be the 3-in-1. If you recall, I said at the beginning that it's a collective agreement by a set of peoples. Now, if you now go on to the priority of critical infrastructure, energy and security, with necessary subsidies on local and all that stuff. We have about 5 key presidential candidates. When I say key, it is not derogatory on the other presidential candidates who are representing the political parties, but these are the ones that are prominent of it. Okay, 6. These are the ones that are prominent, mostly on social media. In fact, I would even say 7. I can name them, but there's no need for that. I believe we all can do a Google search on that, and we get to see them. So, if you look at most of them are looking at some of the primordial requirements and needs of the Nigerian peoples. One is looking at energy as a pivotal focus of his administration should he be. Another one is looking at opening up the economy to have a free market economy. Another one is looking at a leadership rejuvenation, behavioral change based on leadership, because that's the perspective he is seeing it. Another one looks at it as a continuation of fighting corruption. Yet another one looks at it from the points of view of the factors of production that the economists would call the agricultural growth. All of them are important. But if you look at the way Nigeria is at the moment, you will begin to see that we are in the knowledge and information age. One of our greatest commodity exports is internet interactions. Some people Yahoo, Yahoo. Some people call it hacking, entrepreneurship, internet entrepreneurship. Some people, so many other ways, but that is one of our major exports because by nature, we're very highly intellectual and knowledge-based people. So if you look at it that way now, sometimes it might be important to leapfrog while still anchoring yourself because the key thing every human being needs is first of all, feed the mouth. And when you feed the mouth, you generate activity for the other senses, the eyes, the sight, and all that, the thought. And then the 6th one into the 6th sense, and now the seventh one, which I dare to say is the street sense, being a street sense sensible person. Most Nigerians are now street sense sensible. So if you look at all those, you'll find out that there's nothing wrong with the manifestos of the political parties or the political presidential candidates, just in case of priority. And the key critical question is, some of them have said they have done some studies. I've actually advised a few of them, about 3 of them. I'm working with them now. As I said, non-partisan, to look at their structure, to look at their ideology, to look at even ideology is a foreign construct. Their way of thinking, the way they are planning, how do they want to do it, how they want to go about it. But none of them has mentioned how to look at the civil service. The civil service needs to have a curriculum rejuvenation standard, whereby you're absorbing young people into the civil service, but you are still stereotyping them by straight-targeting them, not allowing them to think. They say, I am directed to you, wait for your turn. And now that is very dangerous in the critical interregnum that we find ourselves in, at the junction we're finding ourselves. We have the young, the aged, and the aging, and there is no correlation between any of the 3 of them. That is crisis that we're looking at going towards 2017. But I want to believe that with the way the youth and the Nigerian populace are beginning to engage and take decisions, like the moderator said earlier, things are beginning to change behaviorally. It's not business as usual anymore. Some of the 6 or 7 candidates that we have now may not even be the winners of the election. We don't know yet, because everybody now is keeping certain things close to their heart. The vote is you and you alone. How you decide that is dependent. Now we're looking at the issue of INEC again. It's part of the stage that was given to me to talk about.
Yes.
INEC on paper is doing a good job. However, INEC is dependent on technology. Now, if we divide technology, we look at the rural technology, the rural impact of technology, the urban impact of technology, the flow and the communication process, flow and feedback on the information that you need to get, and then the international issues, because Nigeria is a conglomeration of interests, both local and international. What is the international interest and what are the influencing factors? The contractors that INEC is using, like in the last dispensation, I know he's dead now, but I know and I saw a document that Alhaji Nassim Bantu was one of the contractors that was given something to provide for INEC. I think it was the boxes. Now, Alhaji Nassim Bantu was a legislator in the National Assembly. So if INEC has if there's any issue that has to do with legislation in INEC, how will the National Assembly be an arbiter, a fair arbiter? Of course, we're tired of the judiciary. The judiciary I personally have lost trust in the judiciary because of a lot of the rascality, and I'm ready to be held for libel on saying this because I have evidential proof to take myself off libel and slander in this. This is not really a political thing, but I'm really very upset about it. There's been a lot of judicial rascality and upside down tumbling in decision making that is confusing the electorate. The electorate now cannot begin to trust the judiciary, which is the last bastion. When you adjudicate, people should see you come with equity, as they say, come to justice with equity and open heart and open mind. But now we cannot do that because there is a collaboration and a collusion between the political class to which I belong, the judiciary, and the legislature is just confused. And all these issues, that's in my opinion, all these issues will combine to give us a confused situation that we find ourselves in. Remember, I mentioned the addition to how we're preparing before we started this, where we find ourselves now. And I'm happy that this colloquium is bringing up some of these issues so that we can, at the end of the day, begin to proffer a direction for those who may aspire to political, judicial, or legislative activity. Now, that takes me to the last issue for now, right? Which is eroding ethno-religious conflicts just yesterday morning, I came in from Jos, the capital of Plateau State. Jos, I was born there, bred, buttered, and battered there, and which is just a microcosm of what is happening in Nigeria. Our politicians and we don't have leaders, we have rulers. Our politicians and rulers utilize our emotions and sentiments, religiously and ethnological sentiments, to manipulate, to utilize the power that they have usurped or has been given to them by virtue of mutual respect of the communities that pretend or propose to serve. I was at Terminus. You find out that there was religious defect the day it happened at a place called Nassau. Some one boys urinated in the mosque, and then the other one got upset, and it just became a conflagration, and the politicians took advantage of it. Everybody dispersed into our little holes, but after the initial violence had stopped, Terminus is the major economic hub, is the central point of commerce in Plateau State, right? And Terminus Market the next day, everybody from different tribes, especially in the different tribes, different religions were converging again at Terminus. And then I saw it yesterday as I was passing from the university. And I just looked at it and I told my dad, I said, you see this country? Igbo man they here, Hausa man they here, Yoruba man they here, Ibira man they here, all of us are women. There's Muslim, there's Christian, there's the animists, where they are all selling at Terminus Market. And I said, so where is the fight? Stomach infrastructure is a unified issue. So how many of them, the presidential candidates, for example, are actually talking about feeding the populace? I haven't seen any. I've not heard of any, I've not read of any in any of the manifestos. Instead, we go to Chatham House, which is a foreign institution. Not one of them has gone into our National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, which is supposed to be a think tank. None has gone to the Institute of International Affairs to make any statement. Yet we go all over the world. Let us question these issues. Let us question these issues. And that's my case for now.
Thank you very much. There's still a couple of things we'd like you to touch on, but we'll leave it there first because the issue of sorry, she's not taking the microphone for me. She's like,
okay. The seat is hot.
It is definitely hot, and a hot FM person is moderating it.
I just you get it.
You get it,
Okay.
right? Yes, because the issue of medicals is still part of the things that we wanted you to take a quick look at. So sometime during the initial part of the campaign, people were calling that some of the candidates should go for medical checkup and all that. Can you touch on that and how it influences our own this influencing this presidential race and vis-a-vis us looking at the next 4 to 8 years? Because at the end of the day, this conversation is about the Nigeria we want 2031, looking at 8 years ahead.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that for the reminder. Now, let me ask some critical questions. We talked about the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive. The executive has a political headship, but the support mechanism for the executive is the civil service. Before any civil servant is engaged in employment, the person must do a medical test. Before anybody works in the judiciary or anywhere, the person must undergo a medical test. Why is that so? Because of mental health, the ability to deliver, psychological safety of me working with you in the office and me able to trust in your ability and capability for us to interact together so that we can deliver service. The judge in the judiciary has to undergo, in fact from the magistracy, has to undergo sound medical and mental health issues, tests. The soldier, the military person, periodically undergoes testing of the mental health capacity. Even at the point of recruitment, they do medicals. So why can our politicians not do medicals? We have had instances, just this morning I read that Joe Biden has been declared medically fit for this year.
I said yesterday he was
Yes. Now, we copy the American system. Where it is convenient, we use it. Where it is not convenient, we don't use it. That is the selectivism of our of our ruling class. And I like to use the word ruling class because I don't know yet if I have seen a leader in Nigeria from the few years that God has given me the privilege to spend on earth. So I will say there's nowhere in the Constitution that says that anybody aspiring for political office should undergo a proper medical test. But the ethics should let us know. We need to begin to question the ethics should let us know, because let me tell you, being a counselor in Nigeria right now is a tedious job. There was a time ago I was in a local government in Plateau State called Mikang, and my neighbor then just printed poster that he wants to contest for councillorship. The minute he did that, by the time he came out of his compound, there were over 50 people sitting down in front of his house that were waiting for breakfast. By the time he went out and came back, they were waiting for lunch. Before he goes to bed, they are still there waiting for dinner. He has not even won the nomination. Now, tell me what kind of a pressure just the councillor will go through if he succeeds in wins the election and is given that responsibility. Not to talk of the president of a country, not to talk of the governor of a country. Of course, they have the ability, they have the plethora of aids that will help them to do the work. But the bottom line is the buck stops with who is given that responsibility.
Right.
How mentally capable is that person? Our president, for example, is 24 hours out of a day, different time zones. He can receive calls from any president. He can receive visitors from anybody, both local, international, and even look for time for his family. Those are mental health issues that require you need to test it. If you find out that there's a slight deficiency, they should begin to undergo therapy. The physical, let me tell you something, one presidential candidate who is running now actually had a stroke in the last election before this one. While campaigning, because 24 hours a day, they're on the road, they're talking to people, they're listening to people. Of course, it's a testing ground. So sometimes some of these presidential candidates make mistakes. It's not because they are not mentally, it's not because they don't know what to do or what to say, but lack of sleep deprives your ability to function mentally. Science tells you that you can live without food for 3 weeks, but 11 days without sleep, you will die. So these people who are contesting are superheroes. That's what I see, and I doff my hat. I've been in the forest, so I know what it is. I understand the dynamics. In fact, then I used to sneak in at 3 a.m. and run to Abuja and sleep for 4 or 5 hours and then come back and continue campaigning. Or I run to an neighboring state and go and hide. And that was just one quick governorship election in 1 year. You understand what I mean? So sometimes Nigerians will have to start looking at these dynamics in order to understand the kind of challenges they need. And we're not saying that they should undergo medical tests because we want to find out whether they are mental, whether they are mad, what is for their own health. Because the minute any one of them gets into a position of responsibility, they become the property of the people. I tell you that Mr. President's urine and whatever it is he passes, his body is tested every day to ensure that it's a national security issue. So the mental health of any political office holder or any aspirant to political office is a national security issue, because whatever decision he or she takes affects the generality of Nigeria and even our international and local interests. Now, rest my case. For now.
Wow, yes, indeed, for now. It's like, one former military president said he steps aside. I'm sure you know who we're talking about. He's stepping aside, and we have seen why the statement was stepping aside and not, totally giving the base. But thank you very much for the key and very salient issues that you have raised. It's a kind of concern when we talk about the mental health of those who are in leadership position, because it trickles down at the end of the day. And I love the way you rephrase it for us to see how important it is. It's not because you want to name call or castigate any individual, but for their own personal well-being, which eventually becomes the burden on the citizen, on whether they're efficient is a burden, whether they're inefficient is a burden. Either way, it's very important that this thing is done. Now, I'm wondering, sir, when you say that it is not in our constitution, but morally speaking, is something that should be done, is this something that should be in the constitution? Seeing that we may not decide to take that moral blanket and wrap ourselves in it.
Yes, I think it should be a constitutional requirement. The same way this is an advocacy, a call to the National Assembly to do something about it, regardless of partisanship or whatever it is, a national interest issue. We should put it in not For example, Fela sang about it. He said, in the country of the blind, I want an eyed man to kill. Right? And then he taught us, teacher, don't teach me nonsense. So if you look at it, I think it is even mandatory for us to ask the National Assembly, the incoming one, to put this as a reform of the electoral act requirement. If you can say you need a minimum of school cert for certain and all that, then we say you need a minimum of a medical certificate to show that you are mentally and physically fit. Of course, the demands of the office can cause somebody's health to deteriorate, but we have. It's also a national security issue to ensure the health of our president or governor or senator or whoever is representing us by a collective will and a decision of the people to whom he or she aspires to serve.
Thank you very much. Can we please give a speaker a round of applause? The issue of his raised and very succinctly so the issue of lack of social trust and the reasons why that actually exists. It's not because Nigerians generally don't trust people, but they've been given, we have sufficient reasons why the citizenry don't trust their leaders. And of course, you talked about the absence of political education. People are enlightened, they know what's going on, but they don't really have the innate knowledge of how politics and the leaders do things sometimes, and that creates a lot of vacuum for people to be manipulated. In journalism, when we talk about misinformation, disinformation, most times it happens because there's lack of it. There's room for these people to manipulate. And if we agree with you and say their rulers are not leaders, they will easily take advantage of things like that. Of course, again, the issue of behavioral change is very, very important. And you also told us that Nigeria is intellectual and knowledge-based people, very intelligent sort of people, even if it is native or street knowledge. Even if they are not educated, we agree that Nigerians are very intelligent people. And then, the issue about the civil service needing a curriculum rejuvenation. I did my NYSC at the Ministry of Information, and I was looking forward to the end of it, just so I can be out of it. Yes, because if you're used to being except of course you work directly with a director or some person who is in a particular kind of office. If you're a bit someone who likes to be open about, you get bored, and before you know what is happening, like you said, you will fall into
the lethargy
of thinking, so what else can I do? Who is selling recharge card? Who is not selling this? What should I be selling? And that is not what it's supposed to be. And someone also said, sir, I don't know whether you agree or not, that no matter how seemingly diplomatic or okay a politician is, when they get into the system, the civil servants are sometimes the ones who tell them, no, be so.
It's not a case of
this is how we should do it. We will have to move this and take it here, and then you can get that.
Yeah, if I may.
Yes,
there's the civil service, you need a bureaucracy. For accountability reasons, you need to document everything.
Yes.
And the reasons for the documentation is archival, so that you now retrieve if you see governance is direct. It starts from something and it's situational. And as you move, you find out that there's a need. It's like when you pour water on the ground. The direction you pour it in, it will go in that direction, but it faces certain obstacles as it moves on. And that's how the bureaucracy should work. The bureaucracy is a stable framework that all the hinges, the legislature, the judiciary, and the executive should work. However, the form and format of the bureaucracy has enabled a lot of corruption in the system, because I'm happy now that certain governments and certain government institutions and private institutions are beginning to adopt open governance policy. However, there's a gap. The open governance policy is still dependent of, I am directed to, need to know basis. From grade 1 to grade 3, yours is just carrying the file, right and like so. Not allowing room for breathing. You only begin to start to breathe a little bit when you reach the assistant directorial level. Assistant, then deputy, then you reach the director. But that is a big, it does not mean, they have experiences and everything, but that is a big gap between, if a 5-year-old child can hack a phone, not to talk of somebody who has gone to university or gone to a polytechnic or done something, has so much experience. We're in a technological driven area. Of course, we're beginning to have internet meetings within the civil service, which is a big leap. I've done a lot of work on change management in the past year with institutions.
Is that thanks to COVID though?
Yeah, COVID was a catalyst. COVID was a catalyst, but we're looking at issues of technological, if you need to.
Advancement.
Yes. However, I will put in something. There's a great professor at Imosiri who was what was that? He was an anthropologist whose main aim was to study and understand ancient populations, ancient nation states, and their governance structures and ability to interact. And he said, you indigenize what is foreign. That means if I bring you, we are doing it without knowing the way we're doing our food and the clothes we wear. This is Swiss, right? But the design and style is uniquely African.
Right.
Is it a bad thing? No. This telephone is foreign, right? But we also had our means of communication. We had the drums, and then we had our internet where somebody would just put water in the calabash and they call somebody and you see the person. You understand? I'm being a very practical African person. You don't feel like this Gashina. This is the person, but we're using our own for wickedness. So when did that, but that's exactly what it is. So we've had our own technology. It's just for us to now begin to learn to derive from international sources, even though the international community will give you just limited. We have shown and proven time and again, from the person in the east, from the person in Maiduguri, from the person in Kano, from the person in Sokoto, from the person anywhere, has shown that they can utilize the foreign technology. I've seen somebody, the mechanics in Nigeria, if the manufacturers of cars all over the world can take one Nigerian mechanic and see how he can keep a BMW that was 20, 30 years old, still functioning and get Nigerians. We can do this thing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Listen, I know that we will still come back to you because obviously there's so much that we're going to dig, from the very rich resource that you have. But I'm told that our keynote speaker is online now. He's ready to go on, so we can just take his, because we don't know how long he's going to be there for. So we want to just go ahead and welcome. Do you need us to leave here so you can have the screen to yourself, or we can stay here and he will project it? Technical, please. You can stay here while he does that. So, okay, based on that note, we've been hearing from our very, very eloquent Wajidi's Bello Ata, who has warned me that he does not do titles. So let's put our hands together for him one more time.
Thank you very much.
Before we get back to the other speakers in the house, we are being joined online. I told you, no matter where you are joining us, we have people from all over. Professor Chidi Anselm Odinkalo, Professor of Practice, Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, USA. Sir, thank you so much for being part of this conversation today. He's our keynote speaker, so let me quickly just take a brief of his profile, because if we go through it all today, Prof, he has a lot under his sleeves. So, Chidi Anselm Odinkalo is a Nigerian human rights activist, lawyer, professor, and writer. He is currently the professor of practice in international human rights law at the Tufts University Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, Medford, USA. He is also co-chair Sudan Consortium, chair advisory board, global rights, and member board of directors, Atrocities Watch Africa. He previously chaired Nigeria's National Human Rights Commission, NHRC, served on the panel of eminent persons that negotiated the return of the Gambia to the Commonwealth in 2017, and was recently the senior team manager for the African Program of Open Society Justice Initiative. He has worked as an advisor for the Ford Foundation, New York, World Bank, African Union, International Council for Human Rights Policy, Geneva, and many others. Professor Odinkalo has acted as counsel in international human rights litigation before Africa's regional human rights courts and tribunals, and was involved in the creation of the African Court of Human and People's Rights. He is associated with several advocacy initiatives for the protection of human rights, including the International Refugees' Rights Initiatives, where he serves as chair, board of directors. He has researched 4 courses on contemporary challenges of multilateralism in regional systems in development, human rights and governance. He is the co-author of the Too Good to Die, Third Term and the Myth of the Indispensable Man in Africa, Kanchifo 2018. He holds a PhD in law from the London School of Economics and Political Science and is a visiting professor at Harvard Law School. In 1991, Odikalu won the USIA Fellowship on the bicentennial of the Bill of Rights. Ladies and gentlemen, please do join me to welcome our keynote speaker for the maiden edition of the Colloquy, Professor Chidi. Thank you for joining us, sir. Please go ahead. Yes. Good day, what's that, Prof?
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. I'm sorry I can't. I hope you hear me on phone.
We hear you, sir.
Sorry I can't do it. Basically, and to Dominic and the team, thank you for setting this up. It's an act of labor, an act of love, and an act of faith as well. Faith that Nigeria will turn the corner from where it is at the moment, and that the future will be brighter than it is today, because all over the country, I think people have reason to live in difficult things are challenging, and the politicians are not making it any easier. The theme, I believe, is what does Nigeria need now? And the question is, what does now mean? Now, the people in Lagos woke up this morning to find that the state from here to Lekki is pretty hot. And to pretty further different other parts of the country are as well. The governor has declared the independent republic of Ireland. I think that GR states some other guy, I suppose Governor Federal has also declared the independent state of GR. They are now all working hard to set up their own private central bank and to take command of currency systems, monetary policy, all those little systems within Nigeria, both Canada State and Jigawa State and ABC states and all of that. And that is what Nigeria is about. And what is this about? This guy was one of public money. That is whether by and are looking to use those to buy elections, buy voters, around the vote, so that they can continue to protect their interests and continue to get elections to Nigeria. So, and also here, kind of the voting on that, I think that victims is shit show. But I do think that we've got to think of ourselves as much more careful than just a set of victims, marking agencies in this nonsense that's happening. And I'd like to hope that, my central message really that more than any other thing, that keep up all of our problems along the generation eventually shorten. What Nigeria is now is citizens who are willing to solve this nonsense, like state and bring it to the fold. And hopefully also hold this guy to account over the next week as we go to choose who will run the country over the next 4 years. The challenges are immense. Make no mistake about it. When elections season. And it's probably the most civil election, at least on paper, that the country would have made since 1999. But it also goes back to Nigeria's traditional fault lines of ethnicity, fault lines of freedom, fault lines And you can break it down also by equations. But that really is what it is. This is also the first time since 1999 that a retired general is not in a leading position to be the next president of Nigeria. So the first time effective that the country is going to be looking to elect a non-soldier in a process not managed by soldiers. And so the symbolic significance in the next elections it begins said by the country to form a system that is truly run by non-people, by non-regimental people, by civilians. So the issues are quite significant and symbolic, but also at the level of and nation building. And it's all happening at the time where the community is very in terms of the security things that are what's in terms of national unity, what's the situation in all languages. Thousands of people that disappeared privately. Earlier this morning, I'm just listening to this meeting from a meeting governors was doing in Anambra State, where they delivered the inception report of the Justice and Peace Commission, which is a commission inquiry into the violence of Nigeria, which I chair. And in putting that together, we must take a view of safety and security situations, not just in Anambra State, south of Nigeria, but in all of the country. And the situation is not to take time to look at. It's really has a history that predates what we think it is at this time. These days we talk about non-government, for instance, and it's the name given to a lot that is happening in the southeast of Nigeria, but the first instead of so-called non-government was the adoption of the Commissioner for Science and Technology in Anambra State in 2014. At that time, most people here had no memory of much of what we're talking about today. And in 2001, September, the chairperson of the Nigerian Bar Association in Onitsha and his wife were killed in broad daylight. Having just returned from the annual conference of the Nigerian Bar Association in that year. And so the security has been with us for quite some time. And the fact that it's still at the level of intensity that there's something about the mechanisms by which we manage these things in the country, but also about governance and how we run. So what are the challenges? Before I get very to the detailed questions. Depending on how you class or how you slice them up, food and identify probably 6 to 7, somewhere between 6 or 7 challenges. In that particular order, and I will be arranged. One is obviously insecurity. Nigerians are feeling quite terrible. The second is the economy. The economy is very much here. Nigeria is pretty much insolvent. We are spending about 104, somewhere in the region of 404 to 106% of our revenue on debt servicing the loan, which means essentially that we are borrowing for recurrent expenditure. And therefore, and this is before you compute the costs of corruption, the public sector. So essentially, the country is insolvent, and we are therefore loading up onto the next generation a set of liabilities that we don't even know how they are going to be financed. The third issue, of course, is leadership replacement process before elections. elections, sadly. And so it requires a lot effort from citizens to be able to hold it to account. In many ways, I think it's much more corrupt than the police force. If you think about that for a moment, the police deal in retail corruption. I think deals in wholesale corruption because they are corrupting the system. It comes, it is programmed to come to fruition every 4 years. And so every one of those 4 years, they look to collect big money. And this is part of the reason why this whole currency reform process is so problematic for them, because for them, for the politicians, they're looking big bucks and how to launder that money into a market is not to imagine. Just last night, my friend was telling me about another distant friend who was struggling picking up some over 10 billion that they had stashed somewhere. And so when we cannot understand why the government are disturbed, because if people who are not in government they are looking to pick up 10 billion, you can imagine how much the governments have stashed in order to be able to buy these elections. But so I think an elections, I think it's then besides standing at elections is not efficient and public institutions generally, but the judiciary has become a major constraint on building a country that works for everybody. And you see, when you see a case, the joke is that when you go to court with a case, the parties know the truth, it's the judge that is at trial. And Nigerian judges have faced that trial. There are decent judges, but they are increasingly endangered and getting fewer and fewer. By people who have become judges because they want to use the form vocations of judgeship to make money. And we're now in the sad situation in which senior most justices of the Supreme Court are being denied peace because it's given as a justice of the Supreme Court, they say you are no longer present. And whenever you think of a case as a judge, you have a very narrow window of options. And when you see judges deciding cases which have no basis in fact or law, corruption is involved, when the Supreme Court starts deciding that people who have not contested, who have not contested the party primary, can become candidates, corruption is involved. When the Supreme Court starts deciding that a man who came up in an election can become the winner, corruption is involved. And let us not see there's corruption in the Supreme Court. Because there are costs for being an active citizen. Citizenship is not that sport. At least some of us will be that. But that is very that when this is being done by others, it's okay. So if you don't see it being done by other people, without having to show that it's happening for others, and Nigeria, no matter what Nigeria needs, we need to fix it if we are going to get anywhere. Every one of us here, if you never get it, unless you are politicians, you are not going to be the body to take it. Appeals of the Supreme Court are now taking about 2 years to get together, and it's going to get worse after this election because many more cases now, if you go to schools or displacing cases, that should get done. And just a prioritizing political cases because there is no money to pay for political. So that's the fourth thing. So I started with security, I talked about the government, I talked about the elections as pending, I talked about the judiciary and judicial institutions. Many more things. Money and leadership. Very big tasks. And you can see that the kind of broadcast that people like national quietly, whether or not relate, and the kinds of things that happen in the corruption and the kinds of position, very important position. In the challenge, and the leadership processes are quite and they're not provided us with the kind of leadership so the country that Nigeria needs to be properly. Then, two things that are not usually talked about. One is infrastructure. from which we cannot harness the dividend. If we cannot harness the dividend for our population growth, then we're more likely to get this out of it, and that will be bad for the country. Population growth is excess of 3.2% economic growth over the past 8 years, and that rate of 1.1% more chemical life. Basically, if your population is growing at 3.2%, and your economy is growing at about 1%, you have a crisis of the balance of power. Basically, you are getting more out than you can feed. That is where we identify why violence has been rising. Violence has been rising because, as a matter of reality, we are in a situation where demand outstrips supply. And when demand outstrips supply, you need institutional relative to be able to mediate the tensions that are right. Anyone here who has grown up in a family of a lot of children, I grew up in a family of 10. My parents are now, so I'm very limited. Will understand that when you are in a family with a lot of children and very limited means, you need decent and strong parental guidance to be able to mediate tensions between siblings when food is limited. This is not different countries from what we are in Nigeria. But if you look around, whoever you are, wherever whichever part of Nigeria, look around your neighborhood and ask yourself when last did you build, when last did anyone in your neighborhood build a public school? When last did they build a public hospital? When last did we build anything compared to the public? All of these are now being provided by private profiteers. And even with private profiteers, when last did we regulate property? When you see buildings falling on top of Nigeria, because public regulation has failed, public building inspection has failed, we're not able to look out and look out for the main benefits of government. And this is, population is growing at 3.2%. And you're not building schools, you're creating more out of children, which means more insecurity. So in 1986, we had about 9.5 to 10 billion out of school children. In 2020, by the end of 2021, we now have over 22 billion out of school children. And the number is still growing. Why is that? There is no absorptive capacity to take the kids into public school. We're not training up new teachers. Universities are for the most part out instead of being inspection. And therefore, teachers are not being produced who are going to take on the responsibilities of running the school. Most public schools now, you don't find a replacement generation of teachers. The few teachers that are left are looking for private schools from which they can make money in order to retire at the stage. That means Nigeria has a crisis not just of demographics and demand and supply, but of enlightenment. There is a sustainability crisis that is very serious and poses a national security problem. That is where we are. And it is important to step back and think of the consequences of that. In a country in which ideas enlightenment are challenged, but which actually does need enlightenment because that is the basis on which you can build coexistence between citizens in a shared cause of trying to build economic effort. Because at the moment, the market does not work for anyone. It does not work for Northern or Southern. It does not work for Christian nor Muslim. It does not work for male nor female. It does not work for young nor old. It does not work for ABC nor PDP. It does not work for Labour Party or ADC. It does not work for civil servant or for informal sector. It does not work for business. It does not work for small scale enterprise. It does not work for foreigners. It does not work for citizens. It does not work for soldiers or civilian people. It does not work for honest people. It works for budget. It works for the country. It works for the government. the solution to all our problems. What is the beauty of the solution? Because when you see most Nigerians who have Japan, different parts of the world, the conditions under which we face are so dehumanizing and dehumanized. You wonder what would happen if we just make a country more by 20%. 20%. Not as it would be for it. Just the 20% is what is so that we can have the thing that is not our hope that they can because of the hope that we cannot take it, hope that we can get, you can make a house for one and return at 9 hope that when you return, you have to put on the table. And hope that there will be tomorrow that you have a better chance that today we all segregate your ideas and your relationship. But basically, it's a problem. Now, where there does that, where there can be the fact that when I find initiatives like that, young people and people still on the upward level who are willing to get together and keep talking and keep reimagining things despite the challenges that we got. Young people who are innovating in the civic sector, in the enterprise sector, in the commercial sector, despite everything. Young people willing to protect despite the reality that they will be killed, whether it's NSR or whatever else. And young people willing to imagine the possibility that Nigeria is different Nigeria is possible. And but it's also about young people willing to get involved in political activities. You know, one thing that's how I did it, but I think it's important to say that that's all around. Something different is happening in this dimension. And President Mugabe is retiring, and when people retire, the generation that fought the Civil War. And the Civil War fought the trees. It's not the rest of Nigeria, it was to all the people that and Nigeria. And since the end of the Civil War, the people have felt ambivalent about Nigeria and their president. But in these elections, young people in Nigeria, and especially they can build, we want to build a country in which everyone, including the people, believe that they have a of the line and actions that will find fundamental. It's an argument of the kind about the kind of country that we want to build. Whosoever is important, we all want to do that works for everyone. Where at the bottom, this is what no one is. So the country of inclusion has not worked. How we have a country of inclusion of everyone. Not just on the basis of ethnicity, but also on the basis of gender. We don't want this country to move like that. We need a country that is very essential and essential activities. We don't want a country in which the case of the woman is done. We see the country in which the woman is also ascertained in her own country. We don't want a country in which 17 out of 80 presidential candidates are male, and the only viable presidential candidates are male. We need a country in which females as well can hope that they can compete on an equal basis. And we don't want a country in which young girls get to withdraw, believing that their age is determined by their love, or to die at the hand of a man who they man or man that is in a relationship with. We need a country in which young girls believe that when they get into a relationship, it is life changing for the better and not for the worse. That requires all of us to begin to work together, talk together, imagine together, build partnerships and manufacture designs that we've been told from North and South, of Christian and Muslim, from young and old, all those polarities in Nigeria that have been defined as historically or that have been used to define us, and which you see the politicians right now defaulting to. The government's telling you, oh, you're from here, you can never vote for anybody from there, or you're Southern, you shall never vote for anybody from the North, or you're Northern, you shall never vote for anybody from the South. Guys, listen. We have had presidents and rulers from every part of Nigeria, and the country has not worked. The people who have ruled the Southeast were not Fulani or Hausa, they are Igbo, because the money that was allocated for developing the South went to Igbos and they are being run by Igbos. They chose the money, whether it's Chicago or Ogus or this man or whoever, they were all Igbos who wanted the money. The people who ruled the Niger Delta were not Yorubas or Igbos, they were people from Niger Delta. Because we are all respected for issues of Niger Delta and from Niger Delta. The people who ruled Borno State and Kaduna State and Kebbi State are not Igbos or Niger Delta people. Calabar, they are from where? Those places. The people who devastated PTT or the country are not from Hausa land. They are from Yoruba land. The people who are from Colloquy are not from Fulani or from Yoruba land. They are from where? They are Igala from Colloquy. All the people who have destroyed different parts of Nigeria are from those parts that have been destroyed. And by them, we have tried national leaders on the basis of ethnicity. It has not worked. Everybody can think of capacity to destroy the country. Why can't people once try somebody so they find something who is so ever who's only claim to fail in their capacity, hopefully, to help the country move forward. Whether it's a difficult work, let us decide on who best offers the country a chance to move forward. I just don't make it fix the one election cycle or two. Let's fix it on to stop the wrongs and then to build and get the population right. That will take some time. We need a history cycle of turnover in leadership to set us to right. And let me get the first point. By the time President Buhari left power, Nigeria was the seventh most populous country in the world. Today, Nigeria is the sixth most populous country in the world, with just overhauled Brazil. In 10 years, Nigeria will be the fifth most populous country in the world. And in about 21, 22 years, Nigeria will be the third most populous country in the world. That's only behind China and India. At that point, we will not have roads on which the children of the new generation will be. We will not have new school for them. We will not have university for them. We will not have hospitals for them and their mothers and their children. And that is all because we have not the patience in our country that can provide us. And when you imagine the possibility, and many people in this meeting will be around and will be here around that time. Anyone who's 25 now, 25 years, anyone who's 30, 25 years, will be only 85. So then what would be in this meeting today, or listening to me right now, I'm going to tell you that what I'm talking about, this is not future impossible. Let us think about that future and imagine what we would be to get back and begin to do those things now. And to do that, and by the way, we need to address the seven things I talked about
you so much.
Thank you so much, Prof, for that very deep and insightful one. I'm not sure whether you can see the house, but everybody's waving and giving you a well-deserved round of applause. Thank you for making our time to do this today. Thank you very much. Thank you. Totally appreciate that you make that time. I know, with Prof's keynote speech, it's not about question and answer, but we do hope you will stay longer with us and be a part of the dialogue as we progress. Why is the camera not? Thank you very much. I do hope that as we progress, Prof will remain with us in the house and still be a part of the conversation. Thank you so much. Some of the things he is, naturally, I'll start from the gender part. I'm sure you know why. Do I need to tell you? Okay. Prof told us that we do need a country where every woman can actively be involved in politics, in governance, in all sectors of the economy and feel not just being tolerated but actively a part of it because she's indeed capable and trained to do so. Thank you so much for bringing that one out, Prof. And you said we need a country where people focus on issues, not tribes and religions. And it's so true when you say to us that, look, so you know that Yoruba program, I'm not Yoruba, so I might not say it right, that what do they say? The one, right? The cankerworm or the worm that eats the vegetables lives right inside of it. And that's what he highlighted when he talked to us about the fact that if you look at the problem from the different regions, they are not necessarily caused by people from outside. It's, it starts inside and then other people come and feast upon it and it becomes, a big problem for our society. So we need to look inward if we do want solutions, right? And you said we best offers the country, we should look at who best offers us a chance to move forward. And that's a question, I think is one of the key reasons why we're having this dialogue, why this conversation is taking place. That's why we're not talking about 2022 because it's past, right? Yes, we can look back and see what we've not done well that we should change on, but the conversation is about what we should be doing if we want to see a difference in the future, which is why it's really key. And Prof did good justice to that, asking us that question: who in your real conscience do you think would help us get to where we need to get to? That's the question you should ask yourself as you go out to vote in how many days' time? Less than 7 days, about 7 days, yes. Tomorrow is a week to the elections already. So that's very important. And you also said, despite knowing, you said we have a big problem with planning, and no one knows that better than Prof, right? Despite knowing the fact that our population will be growing exponentially in the next couple of years, what are we doing to prepare for it? The children we did not train 10, 15, 20 years ago, that we did not give education, are being given guns and machete right now. And people want to travel, they have to fast and pray first. You catch a fever because you need to make a train trip and you're not sure what will happen while you're on that trip. Prof, thank you so much. I cannot go through all the items you've talked about, but thank you so much for joining us in the conversation today. Like I said, hopefully you spend more time with us. Now let's come home to hear. And please, for those of us who are joining online, feel free to post your comments in the chat room. We see you. Thank you for being there. If you have a comment, the applause went on. I saw some of you on the chat room doing that. Please do go ahead and post your comments and questions there. We'll get to it because it is, like we said, a hybrid and a very, very global conversation we're having today. On that note, let me come back to the house and meet my sister Oluwatosin, whose profile I earlier read. Like we know, she's both an economist and an educationist. And earlier when Prof was talking about education and the effect of it and lack of proper governance and how it affects our education, I saw her nodding and smiling. Ladies and gentlemen, please let's put our hands together for her as she takes the floor.
Thank you very much. I mean, the people that have gone ahead of me made it very difficult for me to speak now, but I'll address some of the issues. Thank you so much, Mr. Dominic, for this opportunity. I'm coming from a different standpoint. I work in a school. And what we have realized, most of us school leaders, is that we actually don't have information. You would see part of my profile, I set up a group where just most of us are even school leaders, not even school owners, who have been handed over curriculum and all sorts of things. And we are asking questions. There's really no support out there. So we all came together to say, look, if the dispensation is changing, let's get involved. What do we know? We recently had a strategy session about 2 weeks ago, and we were looking at economic indicators, indices. These are things that are over our head because our responsibility is just stay in the school, look after children. So it's the truth. It's what we do. Where's the time for us to actually engage and know what's happening out there? What we just have is just ensure the children learn. And I will start off by saying PISA. I don't know if anybody has ever heard of PISA, and it's not the PISA for football. It's a program for information on student assessment, and it's done by OECDs, that's the Organization for Economic Collaboration and Development. And what they do is a study for 15-year-olds, and they're testing them on their proficiency for English, reading, and math. Now, if you check the PISA ranking, you will see that it's the Asian countries and Finland topping it. And it got me thinking, because everybody who is talking globally would refer to PISA. So I sat down, and I mean, like a couple of my friends, and said, so what's happening? Because we've realized that in the private sector, we are the government for education. That's what it is. Everybody takes it into their hands to say, if we want to benchmark internationally, what do we do? So we've gone to the ranking. These countries that are doing well, how are they doing it? What are they doing? We looked, the first 5 countries, you see China, Cambodia, you see Singapore, you see all of them, then you see Finland. And it got me thinking, because if you look at Singapore and Finland, very different cultures, yet they're topping that chart. What exactly are they doing, and how are they getting it right? And I will go straight to Finland. I've been very interested in Finland. What are the Finns doing? Many of us getting access to the embassy to say, look, give us information, because see much, but there is something. If anybody knows Finland is doing something right when it comes to education, then we got the information. They have the government prioritized and invests in education. I mean, Finland didn't start off like this. Some 30-something years ago, they didn't have information. They were typically in Nigeria, but they woke up and said, if we really, really want to do well, we might as well do something right. And of that, the sector into the hands of leaders, that piqued my interest. Why teachers? Because the teachers in Finland are the custodians of the curriculum. They are called the candle of the society. Before you, and I'm going globally before I come back, because the truth about it is that if we're saying we're looking progressive, what we need to do as Nigeria, and it's working. And so if you go to Finland, you can't be a teacher in Finland. The least minimum requirement with regards to degree is a master's. Many of them are PhD holders. They control their curriculum. Interestingly, children don't go into school till they're 7. They don't write the first exam till they're about 15, but don't be fooled about that system. They're getting something right. And then there was something that I saw that nobody has ever said. There's some form of professionalizing career paths. So regardless of what your career is in Finland, because there's that thing of lifelong learning, continuous learning. So they see whether you're a cook, you're a photographer, you're a doctor, it is there. So children come into school, have an idea that this is who I want to become, and the career path, the child is thinking that, and then, when you look at the curriculum, you can see what UNESCO is doing with Sustainable Development Goals, SDG 4, which says that, look, by 2030, education must be inclusive, it must be equitable, there must be quality education, which promotes lifelong learning. And I literally pulled out those parameters and plugged it into Finland, and I saw that it's working. So I'm saying to myself that in Nigeria, if we are looking at education, and you are looking, I'm trying to benchmark internationally. Education in Nigeria must be inclusive. When we say inclusive, are you thinking of the girl child? How many schools have access for people with disabilities? You know, when you say equitable, I'm not saying equality, because equality says I bring in the curriculum and I deliver it regardless of what is wrong with you. Equity says I give you what you need to learn. And then, of course, quality education. When you start to look at quality education, I mean, from the name, many of us, before we take our children to school, there are things that we would ask, questions we would ask. It's the same thing. Is this school, what is the priority? Are they prioritizing professional development for teachers? Because that's the problem. I'm sure we all woke up sometime in December and saw QTS, where the UK has opened up its borders and said, look, if you're qualified, if you can teach 11 to 16-year-olds, the UK border is open for you, for teachers to come in. So it's telling us that in Nigeria, right, development, teacher development, that's something that is key for what is our infrastructure like? And many times when people talk about infrastructure, you look at the physical thing. I'm very concerned about security. When you come into a school setting, much more than the physical security, emotional security of the children in there. My school, I work at a school, we are right at the center of the road. I'm sitting in my office, I'm looking at CCTV, and I'm telling myself that, oh, I'm privileged to have this. Not all schools can have that. So what are the basic requirements that you need to have in a school to ensure that the children feel safe, you know? And in all of these things, and as you're looking at it, it's literally like some form of thread is weaving through it, because I come back to Nigeria, I'm looking, what are they doing? I'll just tell myself, Tosin, check Singapore, Finland, what's happening there? You see, and I had said earlier that they prioritize education. And I asked myself, what are we doing in Nigeria with regards to budgetary allocation for education? And I think I've seen the 2023 budget, and the government, this is higher so far. I think in 2016 it was 7.7% of the public expenditure, but then this year is about 8.8%. Now, the interesting thing to note is you will see all sorts online to say, oh, UNESCO has said that countries should do like a 26%. It's actually not 26%. Sometime in 2015, member nations had a meeting and they agreed that government of any country or their member should budget 4 to 6% of their GDP, or 15 to 20%. And what they said is that when you do that, that ensures that children have access to free education, because that is what UNESCO is saying, that see, make sure, because if you look at the SDG 4, by the time you look at all, it tells you that there are 7 major targets. And one of the major targets for the SDG 4 says that, look, by 2030, access to primary and secondary education must be free for children. How can that be free? There's no public funding for it. And so I looked at it, and interesting, I realized that around 2015, Buhari went, there was some, I think it's called the Global Economic Summit in the UK, and he pledged and said that in 2 years, he would increase allocation to budget allocation to education 50%, and that by 2025, he will have increased it to 100%. 23 budget, and it's 8.8. It's sad for me, because like I said, I can sit in my fancy office and have CCTV and feel everything is okay. Where down the road, there's a government school that some children are not coming to school. We don't have that schools. We are struggling. So what are we going to say with those in, what is it called now, in public schools? And I know here, Mr. Dominic has said I have 10 minutes. What I just want to finally touch on is on out of school children. It's worrisome. Like I said, a group of us came out and said we can't continue to hide behind just teaching children ABC. We need to know what is happening in education as per on a national and on a global level. And we looked at the outcome. I'm so happy that the keynote speaker had addressed it, because as at October last year, we had over 20 million. In fact, if you check the reports, Nigeria is the epic center, sub-Saharan epic center for out-of-school children. Very sad. We have 20 million. And then I started to ask myself that it's nothing new. government is aware. Then in my research, I realized that quite a lot of initiatives, in fact, I think in 2018, there's something called BESDM or something like that, that there's a credit facility from World Bank at about 200 billion channeled into that to sort out, and it was said to go into 17 states. But guess what? In doing that, it didn't reduce, it increased. Like 2 years after, another one came up, and I think OSP or something. I'm really horrible with acronyms. But all I'm saying is that if anybody can sit here and say government come up with initiatives, there are initiatives. My worry with it is monitoring and evaluation. Who is checking the implementation of these things? Because the truth is, there's a particular one called ASP, which is the, I think is Alternative School Program. There's one that is parallel to that running in Sudan called Alternative Learning Program. It's working. So why is it not working in Nigeria? And it means that there's no proper monitoring, there's no proper evaluation. And most times, what most of the development company, what most of is numbers. So it's more quantitative than qualitative. So you would tell me, oh, you've done this, we've reached 17 states, but can you tell me what kind of impact this has had? So I sit here as a school leader who is looking out and saying, you know what, we need to get involved in these things, and the information out there is quite alarming. Thank you.
The one thing you tell for sure is that
Oluwatosin is comfortable in her turf, and she's deep in it as well. Can we please give her another round of applause? You know, when we talk about the fact that teachers are very important, and if we have teachers who know what they're doing, and we have, okay, I'm trying not to use the word rulers, but it's coming to my mouth. If we have leaders who will listen to these teachers who are supposed to know, then maybe we can start from that particular level and start changing, the system and doing what we need to do to make our community a better place. Tosi, thank you so much for that in-depth, very in-depth analysis. Now, what do you think is the reason why we have this challenge of, when you talk about monitoring and evaluation, it cuts across? It's not just the education sector, right? It's like you get in a vehicle from Abuja and say you are going to Maiduguri, and you see welcome to Lokoja. You've not asked yourself questions. You see yourself in worry. You don't ask yourself why you are in worry, and you keep going. That is how we are actually doing things. But what do you think is the reason why funds are coming in, we are signing into UN agreements and all kinds of agreements all over the world, but we don't see that manifest in Nigeria? What really is the thing that we need to unplug to make that happen?
So we're addressing the elephant in the room. I'm sure a lot of people, everybody has alluded to it. It's people have that what's in it for me mentality. When we come here, I was alarmed, like I said, 200 million. How, where, what happened to this? And somebody sits down and is like, this is good money. Just gather some children out here. And so there's lack of integrity, because I'm given a task to do. The lives of the children, I sit down, I have a school and I have 200 children. I don't sleep. So somebody gives me 17 states and says to me, you have roughly, let's say maybe it's about half of these 20 million children, or let's even say 5 million children. I'm giving you 200. What you are saying to yourself is pocket it. Because the truth is, if you look out there, there's information, but there's no information. It's very quantitative, it's not qualitative. I just think people lack integrity. People are interested in what's in it for them. People forget, like you said, that we are doing this for this generation who need to learn. And the way the mind is, there's a very subconscious aspect of the mind that would absorb things in the environment. So if you don't program what you put in for them, they would get it. So why are you surprised that children have machetes and they have guns? Because in looking at some of these some of these initiatives, it's so simple that, see, some of them say, I'm taking this education to that child in the workshop. I'm taking this education to that child on the farm. I'm not even giving them something that is a lot. Just give them numeracy, literacy, basic science, and some form of vocational studies so that they can work with their hands. And somebody does a wishy-washy job, and like I said, it's as hard as it looks. It's just lack of integrity and the fact that everybody wants that what's in it for me.
Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the that's very key, right? Let's get back to the fact that we're having this conversation in multi dimension, right? And we want to start setting the agenda as we look forward to having a better country, hopefully with better people by the year 2031. We're going to have in March elections for 2023. And see part of education is the elementary step second. Because if you don't get the foundation right, then there's a problem. And that level of education is domiciled in the local government, and not even we're talking president. It's that strong. Yeah. Now, as journalists, we've had a challenge actually posing these questions to candidates because you've called for what is it called? Debate. You see what's going on, right? Would you recommend a free education to this government if you have to have a one-on-one with them and say that you want to give them a recommendation on what they should be doing, especially for the public sector, right? Education system. What should they do? Right? Free education? What would you recommend to them?
100%. The economy, and like I said, if we are benchmarking development goals, SDG 4, the first target there says, see, primary and secondary school education, free access. The basic, it's so basic that it's almost ignored. What should now is somebody will ask for, there is private absolutely, that you can go into. Is really not the headache of the children. It's their basic right. Well, I mean, I'm happy the kid is not speakers. Public schools, somebody else, they are. The other, because you've heard here the school is good. During our strategy session, someone asked me, I said, private started to plan for the time become. Can you compete with the public sector? And I said, nobody's thinking that way, because it is not, it will happen. So yes, I'm an advocate for free education access. I mean, that's the basic thing. Government should find out how to fund it, because the truth about it is that free education, you need to have qualified teachers and all of that. But like I said,
you've been hammering on funding, because it's absolutely important. I'm not sure, is it over 20% that was supposed to put towards education?
No, it's not even 26. Oh no, in 2015, like I said, everybody sees out there 26, it's not. In 2015, member nations of UNESCO came together and said, government, this is what we are proposing. And they all agreed, 4 to 6% of GDP, or 15 to 20% of public expenditure.
And we signed, right?
They did, it's there. And it was after that, like I said, President Buhari came up and said, for Nigeria, he's pledging that in 2 years he would increase allocation, budgetary allocation to education by 50%, and that by 2025 it will be 100%, meaning he's hoping to match that 20%. But we can see 2023 budget for this year is just 8.8% of public expenditure.
8.3%.
8.8%.
On paper. Isn't it? It's 8.3% of paper, the budget. That not everything budgeted for is released.
Absolutely.
And it is after that particular percentage of the percentage that is released that you now deal with the issue of honesty, misappropriation, lack of MIT.
Yes.
How will we solve this problem?
See, very basic, the teacher and me is coming out. And I'm going to give you a practical example. Because I was wondering when Mr. Dominic said sit here. I said, I'm not a policymaker, but I'll tell you what works for me. I cannot talk to adults now. It's hard to unlearn and relearn. It is as basic as embedding it in what you're teaching children. It is integrity, honesty. We recently introduced something into our curriculum called social emotional learning, where children understand themselves, they understand the society, you understand societal cues, part of countries, companies, places have core values. It becomes a part. So I ask myself, who are we as Nigerians? Because your core value, it determines, that's the atmosphere of what. So if lack of integrity and all those things, it says who we are as a people. So for me, embedding it is in the simplest of forms. See, it's cascading, it's scaling it down everywhere, such that wherever you go, before anybody talks, oh, he's a Nigerian because he's doing this. I mean, if, like I said, private schools have become government for education for their own children. We are literally building what we've seen because we're benchmarking. And I think it's high time that government starts to listen.
Thank you very much. I'm going to have to pause with you because the fact that we started a bit, behind schedule, we're trying to also find time, and for all who joined us from all over the globe, we see you. And like I said, feel free to post your. I'm with you right here on my phone. Feel free to post your questions or comment there. We'll take it. Prof is still with us, and we do have a question or two for Prof. But holding back, so we'll see whether we can use it to hold him stay. That's why we don't put questions to you, Prof. So thank you for staying on still. Let's go to Dr. Samuel Ugochi, right? Okay. Dr. Samuel Ugochi is going to be speaking to and analyzing the 2023 elections, the risks during. All right. When Prof was speaking earlier, he said INEC is more corrupt than the police. That if police is retail corrupt, INEC is wholesale. It's plural, right? It's plural corrupt. So there are a lot of risks that we look at. Mr. Atta speaking earlier did talk about the fact that we're also looking at the technology, the issue with technology when it comes to it. Even I have said, oh, everything is going to be fine, this is there. We don't know who they're giving contracts to, or we know, or MC Omoluomo is part of the deal. At least we know some of these things, right? So when a prof tells Odimkalo tells you that it's corrupt, these are some of the indices that he's using to tell you, saying what he's saying. Earlier when Dr. Atta was talking, he said, oh God, me and thank you. He said, look, I can say it and you can sue me for libel and I will take myself out because I have proof of what I'm saying. Now, there are risks daring as we head into this election. We cannot deny that. So let's talk about that and how can we mitigate it. You are looking at the election manipulation risk index, right? Yes. From the perspective of the Yaga Africa synopsis. So talk to us about that.
Okay. Thank you very much. In the build-up to the 2023 general elections, many issues have come up. And recently, the CSOs, came up with a report, Election Manipulation Risk Index. Is a data-driven and an evidence-based tool that is intended to curb election manipulation, facilitate strategic planning, and then also promote citizens' oversight of the electoral process. If you look at it, there are 6 basic variables of this index. And one is INEC capture. 2, tampering of the voters' register. 3, voter suppression. 4, resistance to election or electoral technology. And then history of election manipulation or election fraud. And the last one is frivolous election litigation. So these indicators were put together and there are variables. Each variable has several indicators under it. You look at INEC capture, for example. There are instances of appointment and deployment of electoral commissioners with partisan background.
Of course.
And they are also, because if you look at it, CSOs cried out that, look, some of these recs that were going to be appointed had partisan, or they have partisan background. But they were ignored and appointment took place. So the states where they are deployed to, they have risk. Then if you look at it, another indicator of INEC capture is attack on INEC facilities. There are so many states where we have recorded several attacks on INEC facilities. Then you also have instances of attacks on INEC personnel. So when you put all these things together, you see that there's this attempt to weaken the operational independence of INEC. And when this happens, it becomes a high risk. Then another one is tampering of the voters register. Register of voters is very central to the conduct of credible elections, because that is where it takes its root. Instances of inclusion of fictitious names on the register have been recorded. Then we also have instances of registration of ineligible people, like foreigners, the underage. So when you have this, it means the voters register has been compromised. And that goes to the conduct of elections, it goes to the integrity of the election, and it also affects electoral outcomes. Then you look at voter suppression. There are instances where you have outright buyout of PVCs. There are reports of politicians buying PVCs. Then you ask yourself why. Then it becomes an issue that should concern everybody. One, it is an attempt to buy votes. And two, it is also an attempt to weaken the voting strength of target communities. And when this is done, you see that it is against the ethos and norms of democracy. That people no longer look at the situation happening now. When INEC did mock accreditation, Young Africa, it observed the process, and we recorded low turnout in some places, very low. What are the reasons? You are doing this. This is a time where people are battling with scarcity of the naira, fuel. So it's survive first. And at the end of the day, we are even looking at it. People have touted that the idea is to curb vote buying. But on the other hand, it may be an instrument for vote buying. Because now people have become so vulnerable. It's only the living, just as it is only the living that can praise God. Only the living can talk of good governance. So you have that challenge. In fact, in terms of voter suppression, there are some people who registered and they have not been able to collect their PVC. During the mock accreditation, we observed that some people failed accreditation, both through their fingerprints and facial recognition, with their names on the register of voters. How do you address? So these are a few issues around voter suppression. It means these people, this group, are going to be disenfranchised. And so what do? Your name is there, you have your PVC, but without accreditation, you can't vote. Then when you go further, you have what we call resistance to electoral technology. We know the innovations. INEC has the BVAS now, which is being used for accreditation. And they also have the IREV, the INEC result viewing portal, IREV. Now, these are innovations that are intended to improve our electoral process. But we have had instances where politicians openly attack these technological innovations. In some cases, we even have litigation against the BVAS. We have had instances in the past where people in some states resisted the use of smart card reader. And when electoral technology is abandoned or jettisoned, it becomes a fertile ground for election manipulation. Then you also look at some states where they have history of election fraud or election manipulation. And you ask, how did you gather this data? This election manipulation risk index was compiled. The report, is a product of information from various sources. One, previous election reports by INEC, like the 2019 reports. In that report, you will see challenges faced by INEC. So information from there constitutes a source. Then you have reports by domestic and international observers. They will also have information from trusted media outfits. And finally, judicial pronouncements, where the courts have made definite findings of overvoting, of voting under duress, of manipulation, or in all ramifications. So when you put this together, you find out that there are some states that already have this history. And there's this presumption that if it happened before, it's likely to happen. So what is the essence? The final one is election litigation, frivolous ones. You have instances, Prof mentioned earlier. INEC said earlier, recently, that they have been joined in over 1,000 pre-election litigation suits. How do you handle this? Some of them are obviously frivolous. Imagine a situation where somebody is filing a suit against the Electoral Act itself, against the Constitution itself. I remember a time where we had litigations all over asking the courts to even nullify the Constitution. And I laughed. I said, which court does that? Because the court itself is a product of the Constitution. So if you nullify the Constitution, it means you are committing suicide. So when you have such suits, it tells you that in those instances, you have risk. So what the Election Manipulation Risk Index, which we put as EMRI, what it does is to look at these variables. Any state that has 3 and above is a high risk state. Then any state that has 2 is medium risk. Then 1 and none is low risk. So at the end, we have 22 states that are high risk states. 20, we have 22 out of 36. Then 12 medium risk, 2 low risk.
And that too is probably FCT and so.
So it's FCT and Gombe also. Now and then there is that is the first iteration report anyway. The second iteration report will be released sometime next week, and we will see that there are likely to be changes in that outlook. So, what are the recommendations in terms of INEC capture? Yeah. The recommendations are that, look, INEC is not in charge of appointment of the election commissioners or electoral commissioners, but they should now watch, especially the states. In fact, one of the indicators of INEC capture is quality of the recs. Many of them don't even have experience in election management. So by the time you deploy them, the way the election will be manipulated, they will not even know because of inexperience. So it is now for citizens to have oversight. The essence is you know what is likely to befall you and you plan against it. So it is for INEC now to monitor the deployment process. In fact, there are issues about appointments or recruitment of party members as INEC ad hoc staff. So on that too, INEC can now, make public, allow these people to write competency tests, publish a list of your ad hoc staff so that people can respond. Yeah, people can vet and raise issues. And then another thing is the claims and objections that people went through. INEC should be able to treat it with high level of integrity. Treat all those objections. You can even make public the reports. And then improvement of security around INEC facilities. We have seen that in some local government INEC offices, they don't even have perimeter fencing. Many of them are isolated in the dark. And then continuous voter education. People should know about the risks People should know about the essence of election technology. People should know that democracy is not all about INEC, that is for our common good. People should know that the police cannot provide security alone. We need information. So that kind of information volunteering should be there. As Prof said earlier, people who cause this mayhem, they live among us. We know them. Can you give information? So that if you leave it, it's like, there was a time the Court of Appeal was determining a case of the powers of a university to discipline students. You have to take internal measures first. It's like somebody whose roof is on fire. You must take steps before you even call fire brigade. So that is what we should do to be able to mitigate the risk and have credible elections at the end of the day. So it's civil society, the election umpire INEC, security agencies, and individuals. It is a collective responsibility to make our democracy work at all levels. Thank you very much.
Can we please, put our hands together for one thing I have to thank the Colloquy convener for is that they've made our job so easy by getting what journalists would say is an interviewer's delight. People who have answers before you ask the question. So you're not digging into their brain to get them to say something. And I'm really grateful for that because it makes our job a lot easier. But one thing I would love for you to just, touch on before we go to the CEO of Chocolate City, who is still patiently waiting online to have a say. We are so grateful. Thank you for your patience, sir. Can you please just specifically tell us what you think from your findings in this research so far? You've spoken about what INEC ought to do and how we ought to change the process of recruiting both the regs and even the ad hoc staff, and I totally agree with you, right? But what can the citizens, what role should the citizens be playing? You have cited this, and it's something I talked about on one of our shows, I think 2 days ago. The issue of, initially, before we did our own research as a journalist, like, why would you want to buy my PVC? Buy the card, not now go and vote for me. When you buy it, you can't use it. And then in the course of the research, we did find out that, yes, they do this only in areas where they know they don't have support base. So they deplete the number of people who can vote by taking their PVCs from them. So how can the citizens be more conscious? What can the individuals, the Office of the Citizens, what can we do in all of these findings that you got from this research? What is the role that we can play as citizens to stop this from happening?
Okay, fine. You see, what we can do is, being aware that when you compromise the electoral process, you are going to have negative consequences. Non-performance. People who get to these public offices don't owe you any sense of accountability. So it is for us to educate ourselves. That is why I say it is a multi-stakeholder thing. Educate the electorate to say, look, today you can collect 1,000, 2,000, but that is so infinitesimal compared to what you are likely to suffer in the next 4 years. So it is enlightenment. Many people don't even know that that is even a crime. Yes, under the Electoral Act, vote buying, it's say bribery and conspiracy under Section 121. Both the giver and the taker. If you are a candidate and you are aware of it, it's as if you committed it. So people should know that apart from the moral burden to make our democracy work, it is also a crime. And the penalty is 500,000 naira or 12 months imprisonment or both. So imagine somebody who is collecting 1,000. So at the end of the day, what the people can do is to, be educated. They say, look, this is not in the interest of democracy. Good governance is sacrificed. Accountability is sacrificed. When people don't talk, when you are aware of this risk, that's why we say EMRI facilitates strategic planning and also promotes citizens' oversight. When you know that these are the risks, you become more vigilant. And when you are vigilant, somebody said it earlier, because people don't talk, docile citizenry, when you don't talk, it becomes a tool in the hands of the political class. Because they know that even when we do it, you won't talk. So people should now begin to talk. When they talk, like the issue of the budget we talked about, if you appropriate, it is now for the legislature to be up and doing about the process. How what, but when you don't, recently when the National Assembly did budget scrutiny, this budget hearing, they found out, as you said, that look, there was an agency that had about 100 million naira for renovation of toilets. And that appeared previously, the previous year. So how do you, is it good? Renovation of toilets, it was there before, it's there now. What kind of toilet? So it is the people working. That is why, one, if you don't vote in the right people, you are likely to suffer. Because one, they will not be able to perform. They don't owe you because they paid for it. So as we are, we can't stay nascent democracy. After how many years? We have come of age. It's not. So we should be able to take our destiny in our hands and do the right thing. Forget about the gains of today, which will not last 24 hours. We know that there's poverty in the land, which is also a catalyst, but we should endure it. Because one, what we do today has effects on our generations yet unborn. So with this in mind, the people should come together, look at the electoral process, look at the areas of intervention, watch. Don't cause mayhem. One of the issues or instruments at the disposal of politicians is where there is unrest, when they cause political violence, then they take advantage. They know that they don't have support there. They go and cause disruption. So if you are peaceful, have you seen somebody quarreling with himself? It's when the other party agrees. You don't see one person. If you are insulting me and I keep quiet, you will soon be tired. So people should look at the electoral process as a collective project. That look, don't compromise it. Don't get involved in vote selling. Now it's even PVC. We have it on good authority that in some places they are collecting VIN. They are collecting this thing for 10,000. How long in this country? So these are issues that the citizens should be awake to. At the end of the day, I think in Nigeria will be good for it if the citizens are awake to monitor the process.
Thank you for giving him a well-deserved round of applause. Citizen awakening, that's something that we need. I want to ask a question about NOA, but I will not. Let me not even go there. let me not even go there. So thank you very much, Dr. Sam Oguchi, right? Oguchi, he's a senior research fellow at the National Institute of Legislative and Democratic Studies, National Assembly, Abuja, Nigeria. He's a lawyer, by the way. So they say we don't call him barrister, he says choir. Genge. Please, can we give him another round of applause? Well done, sir. Thank you very much, and for your very insightful contribution. Now, let's talk culture, media, and entertainment. We earlier read the profile of the CEO of Chocolate City. I have a question for you about Jesse Jack, but this is not the platform for it. We will talk about that later on the radio. Sir, if you're there, we have been, itching and waiting to hear you speak. So please take it over now. As we welcome, please put your hands together for Abuchi Peter Ugo, the CEO of Chocolate City. We read his profile earlier. Good afternoon to you, sir. At least I know you're in Nigeria, so I can say good afternoon. Yes, I can hear you.
and helping them make decisions as well. So let's take a look at one question I do have for you, okay, is this. Can you walk us through like the impact that media has on governance and nation building? Like 1, 2, 3 direct impacts that you can pick out for us.
Yes, I think I touched upon this, the impact of a few impacts it has. I used to talk about, well, I talked about the impact of America. If you understand, I think there's a point in American history where they want to make America with one power, and we're like the best way to do this is with India. And what he did was, he said, all our and that's what he did. So subconsciously, once you know person was take American independence, and that's the power of what he did was also based out by giving example with the China came up and said, the next week we did Edison, and that's the power of it. So to understand that power, I feel like the government is that as a force. I feel like it doesn't give us talked about the government. How do we address this crisis? I can tell you that the president spoke to something. I could see things on trends. I think 50% of the young people when you get at one on Roman and say, oh, the president said it. No, we are things they must not how we let's how we answer to me because this is what we care about. So I think that's the answer.
That is so well put. Thank you so much, Mr. Peter, for that very deep one. And one more thing I want to ask you before you go. You are the CEO of Chocolate City. I know a couple of the artists that have been under your label. Fantastic guys. I did say I have a question about this dance, but not for this platform. Okay. But talk to me about why do you think that some of our artists sit on the fence when it comes to politics? I mean, you work with us, maybe you have an idea. You know, we see what the video did for his uncle, even if we're in court now, you know, we see what he did for the uncle when it comes to influencing the elections. And we see a couple of them now, well, one of the P squares that this is pitching 10. Some of them are just neutral, while others are pitching 10s, and sometimes people call them and say that they are being bought, you know. But why do you think some of them don't want to be involved in that state, and those that are involved, do you think they do that from a genuine point of view, or is it financially induced?
Yes, so I think that I just also want to comment that I think the problem is you have most of the artists know that after the election, the politicians become so they just come and say, oh, this is why we cannot be have a president. So after election, they know what they're going to shy away from. And again, something not the news. Because if you see this arbitrary the last election, that brought this president, our other people wasn't that because they believe that and they believe the world is good. So I think that's the way they can. Like, for example, you see a movie, if the artist that was spoken about, they have to go around and get questions. There's no problem. Just don't. There's no sense of nationality. And I think that why this kind of conversation is I love this kind of conversations that deal with that. Second one, they say, okay, how policy, how do we actually, because what happens is, no government, you'll see that happen because they can send us so much money. Everyone telling you the outcome of that, but nobody saying, okay, how do we really set us? How do we work? How do we do something?
Mhm.
So it's so sad that that they do fewer so we'll come back to that outside so that we can get those. They don't get those support. So you think about that. How that happens. And then you see certain policies that you have without the things also sometimes there's actually where these people don't set up so let's see people as so I think people are for example, we study president principles
Mhm.
and because and you said they get it like you get feedback anytime. But you guys don't say when you come out and support somebody that probably won't stress about the company. And stuff that looks a lot of and the career. So some that is
So true, so true. I mean, we couldn't agree. You have put it succinctly, but it's a great job you all are doing in the entertainment industry. I think that there is nowhere in the world you go to and just know which part of the globe we are located on the map. They can mention, names of Nigerian artists thanks to social media, TikTok, and all that. But hopefully, when the banking sector gets it right, and you don't have to only spend $20 a year from your card, we can also reach it out there. Thank you so much, Mr. Peter. I will get your contact from you, and we have the Jesse Jacks conversation after now. Thank you very much for the. Please do stick around because there are more questions coming in. Online, like I said, it's a global event. I think this is okay. They know this. That's why they use them during the election. That's Ofi. Thank you for that. They do know. The politicians know that the artists have, following. They have power. So when it comes to election, I'm not sure whether Iloko was just spontaneous or whether it was induced, but he definitely is doing something to politics right now. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Let's give him a round of applause. Let's move to another part of the globe. Online now, we have our next speaker waiting for us. Yes, Abuchi, we know you're done. Let's see. Okay, Ofi is speaking to us next, and he's online, right? Ofi speaks, yes. Let's put our hands together for him as we welcome him, John Maxwell, certified leadership expert. He's going to be talking about faith. The role of faith in all of this. I have not seen a country more religious than Nigeria anywhere in the world. Really, if we are to go by how religious we are, the number of churches, mosques, in fact, I stopped calling them number, I call them species. We have different species. And if we go by that, this country should be where you can close your eyes and sleep and nothing will happen to anything that concerns you. It reminds me of a story from the primary school where, some people leave their books and just you pick and drop money and go until a stranger came to town. Who's the stranger affecting our faith, sir? Please, it's over to you. Thank you for doing this. Can we put our hands?
Thank you very much. I'd like to say very good morning for me and everyone else. And I want to appreciate Dominic and his team and the Nation Institute for putting this program together. I really wanted that we continue to create these spaces. It looks like, there might not be that many number of people in attendance, but trust me, it is like gathering the most that mountains. So it's important that we continue to have these discussions and chip away at the mountain of ignorance, the mountain of opposition, and that's how we're going to create the culture. Because democracy is what is the system of governance. It is first of all a culture of a people. I think one of the reasons we're struggling is that the system is not exactly a cultural value for us as a people. Like you said, Nigeria is a very religious country. Whether it's Christianity or Islam, or even other religion sects and belief systems. and unfortunately it has profited us a lot. And that is making a distinction between faith and religion. I know I've been the concept of that was taught to use faith. I don't have a problem with faith. Being a Christian and Christian myself, I believe that faith is important. If you don't have faith in God or in any deity, I think it's not a very safe space to be. Religion, on the other hand, is man-made. It is responsible for faith to be generated into religion. Whether it's just a system of rituals, just a system of practices that may or may not have any bearing on reality, which is what we see in Nigeria. And this is the problem. One of the problems we have as this affected application of faith and generated religion in Nigeria is because of our tendencies of prejudice. So apart from being a religious expert, apart from being an ordained minister, I am an ordained minister, I am also a sociologist. And so one of the things that we have done over the years is to study society, past, present, across geographies and across time. One of the problems we have is tendency of prejudice. What is prejudice? Prejudice is the right kind of thing without actual knowledge, critical thinking, or personal experience.